Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is you want me to check out. If you have your own song you'd like to suggest for special selections, you can find a link to do so in the description below. Today's comes at us from Brendan. It says, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on The Sermon by Ahab. Really good funeral doom with a nautical theme. Enjoy. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. We got some Ahab ahead of us, which is interesting. I've heard their name pop up a couple of times recently because next week's theme? Nope, the week after, maybe. We'll see how the polls are going. Anyways, there's a possibility we're going to be doing in music inspired by art. And Ahab has been popping up. So this is going to be interesting to check out. Let's dive into Funeral Doom, though. I just discovered Funeral Doom. You guys are already tossing more at me. Coincidentally, by the way, because this request was a long time coming. Anyways, enough rambling. Let's get into this. This is Ahab's The Sermon. It's Funeral Doom, so I gotta check out the tempo. Bringing up the app. Let's do this. We're sitting at a cool 70 right now, but those might be eighth notes. We'll see how they progress with this track. Really atmospheric, really large and monstrous, which, I mean, I got a picture of a whale here, so was that a growl? Dang, that is low. Well, we've dropped down to 60 now. Yeah, this is gnarly. A little bit of a double time in there with our eighth notes on the hi-hat. That is a very dry snare. Every time I do it, they don't play the snare. I like how the track feels exceptionally large. Really utilizing the slow speed to showcase and create the vibe of something monstrous. think some of that comes from the fact that there's just so little. Yeah, there's so few moments of space. Everything is long, drawn out. Every note leads into the next. Okay, what's going on there? Are we at 9-4? Yep. We're alternating bars of 5-4 and 4-4. But it's done in such a seamless way. I didn't even pick up on it till I started counting out the time signature. So it was like 6 minutes of a single idea, right? We did have a small variation on it with the gallop within the idea on like beat 3 of the phrase, but most of that was one idea. This is our first big shift halfway through the track. We have muffled waves. Hopelessness in our chord. Maybe not hopelessness. So we're still at 60 from our last section, but it feels so much slower because we've shifted to eighth notes on it rather than anything with a bit of movement. Yeah, and this definitely feels like a monstrous entity, just something very large. Just taking constant steps, moving forward relentlessly. The vocals are just so beyond me. Wow. so depending on how you want to feel this, we could be in a high 30s right now. Interesting, we have the suspended tone in the backgrounds. Interesting. I don't know if it's the speed or the production. It's becoming increasingly difficult for me to connect emotionally with the track. Interestingly, I don't know what that last instrument was. I kind of assume it was an organ, but there's still parts of it that kind of sound like a choir to me, but the choir would have to be massively compressed and distorted a little bit to get the same sound, but it's kind of felt like vocals, like enunciation, like syllables at one point. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Um, this is an interesting song though because it falls in line with a lot of what I felt about Funeral Doom when we checked it out last week during Gotta Go Slow. Um, in that I'm still kind of having some of the same problems with it when it hits its slower areas, and that's just I have a difficulty connecting with the notes and the relationships to each other because there's so much space and time between the notes that by the end of a phrase, I've kind of lost track of uh, the sound of the beginning of the phrase, and I can't bring it all together to feel what this chord is telling me emotionally. And I came into that problem there at the end a little bit, but there's also a production thing that I think I'm just going to run into right now. I was also having difficulty figuring out the notes that were being played because this is sort of lo-fi, and I don't know how much of that is YouTube's compression. Primarily because the Funeral Doom we've heard in the past is it was fairly cleanly produced. I'm not going to say there was too many moments where I felt it was too gritty or too distorted or compressed for me. But that this feels like it's a cleaner production than I think this version lets on. And I know that once we hit doom and especially black metal and anything that is just very aggressive in its weight and size, the YouTube's compression just kicks into overdrive. And I've even had a problem with this myself on my own music when I want to make really big moments. The videos that I upload to YouTube just don't have the impact that the ones that I upload to BandLab typically do. It's just YouTube's algorithm and their processing of the audio. Oh man, it's disheartening that I YouTube's just is so bad for music, especially for stuff like this, where you really want these big, impactful, wide moments. This is supposed to be a song that feels larger than life, and I I got hints of it, but I never really got the moment where it felt like that. So yeah, just so I'm not sure, like I said, whether this was an intentional lower fidelity production or if it's YouTube over compressing it. But as we got closer to the end and we had these long held out notes, I was realizing I couldn't hear them as well. And I think we were also lower pitched on our guitar work than at the beginning of the song. I was just, I don't know, just the third part of the track, which is just bonkers. It's 12 and a half minutes, and I can break it up into three movements. Where each movement does one thing. I can break it up into three riffs basically. That is just. I'm not trying to throw shade on Funeral Doom fans, but this genre just is not for me at all. I understand why people enjoy it, and I can appreciate what it brings to the table and how it can accomplish things that other genres, or I guess technically other tempos, cannot. But at the same time, it is very difficult for me to keep my attention on tracks like this, where I spend 6 minutes in the same vibe, and it's not an exceptionally deep or layered vibe. And again, I don't want to throw shade on the genre or anything like that, or the band or fans or anything. It's just, it really is not my cup of tea here. Um, but yeah, it's so slow and so distorted there at the end. A little bit. All right. So, anyways, let's dive into these three sections because I think they do very different things very well. Our first section has a lot of the weight and size being brought to the table almost immediately. As soon as the song starts, we have some ambient tones, and then it moves into our guitars and drums and bass. And immediately, as soon as the band comes in, bam, you're met with the size of the song. It is um, monstrous, it is humongous, but it's also a bit agile. There's maybe agile is not the right word. There's a beauty to it. It isn't just lumbering. We hear in our first section a lot of fancier ideas going on with our music. It is not just straight quarter notes or straight eighth notes like we see in the third section, which to me is a bit more of a single-minded, like taking one step at a time. These huge, lengthy steps as the feet, really have to. You can feel the energy that's required to move the massive weight of these legs. No, there's a dexterity to the beginning. There's riffage going on. It's faster moving. Even though our tempo is only 10 BPMs faster than our third section, it feels it feels like it has more momentum. It feels like it's more elegant. It takes less energy to move. We're still presented with the raw size of the section though. Um, and I think this is really important. I don't know if it is about the whale on the cover here. If I remember right, I Ahab wrote an album about Moby Dick. And there's a whale on this one, and I'm kind of putting two to two together here, but this might be the wrong album. I don't know. But I'm gonna go on that angle for right now, and I hope it pays off once we hit the lyrics. Um, but the idea that, I mean, look at a whale. It is enormous. It is a giant beast, but they also can fly out of the water and like do stuff. They seem a lot more agile, especially when they're swimming, than their size lets on. And I think it's really interesting to portray this in our opening idea, where we have a bit of the speed and dexterity of it mixed with this overwhelming force, this size, this power coming through the distortion and some of the longer held out notes against the faster eighth note ideas or some of the rare gallops we got out of it. Um, it is it is a phenomenal opening statement to this track. It's also really neat there at the beginning that I wasn't quite sure where our tempo was at. We could have been at, I think we were 70, is that what I said? But we also could have been at 35, depending on how you felt it, whether we were utilizing quarter notes in our guitars or eighth notes. And using eighth notes and possibly even an occasional 16th note in a funeral doom song sounds wrong. So I kind of want to lean towards the 35-ish and say that those are quarter notes and eighth notes rather than eighth notes and 16th notes. No, that's backwards, isn't it? Yeah, that is backwards. So yeah, 70 feels right, 35 feels wrong. um, but yeah, it's really neat to hear them go for the slower tempo and say, well, that's not going to define the sound though. Just because we're at a slow tempo doesn't mean we're going to play slow all the time. And they introduce some faster ideas as these momentary licks within their riff phrases. And it's so good. Um, and like I said, assuming we are talking about a whale here, it does showcase all the aspects of it. Now, after this, we enter into our second moment. And we contrast our first rather harshly. We take away all the power, we take away all the width and the size, we bring it down to atmospheric sounds, compressed waves, and um, just an isolated acoustic guitar, no? Maybe a clean electric. Playing these four note chords, but instead of strumming the whole chord, just kind of runs down the notes. And we get this 4-bar chord, which is really hard for me to hear because it takes like 30 seconds to get these four chords out. But I do believe we're looking at a 4-bar phrase with a bass chord, a risen chord back to the bass, and then a lower one. And sort of this idea right here where we start in the middle, go up, start in the middle, go down. And we have a bit of a resolution on the lower one. Interestingly, here I was talking about hopelessness. That's kind of the emotion I was getting out of this, but I was not entirely confident on it, and it's entirely because of this fact that it takes so long for this chord progression to be seen from the beginning to the end that I have a really difficult time hearing all the relationships between them to figure out what the music is telling me. And this is just it's a problem I'm going to have with these slower tempo tracks. Hopefully I can just it's a muscle thing. The more I listen to Funeral Doom, the better I'll get at uh, basically improving my short-term chordal memory, I suppose. Um, I don't know, but yeah, it's a small problem I have with this stuff. I just don't have. Uh, I don't know. I'm lacking the skill for it, whatever skill that may be. But I still got a tinge of hopelessness out of this. But it's not just that. It's maybe something else, and I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. But it's very different. This small, isolated hopelessness versus that raw power we had in our first section. And sort of the majesty of the size and power. We move into our third. Oh, also, we have the waves there. I don't know if I have any thoughts on that hyper compressed wave sample though. But really interesting to hear that against the guitar. Anyways, then we move into our third section, which is just the lumbering mass. It is just this constant, rigid attack. And it's just, to me, it's this very single minded, focused, one foot in front of the other. This lumbering mass takes so much energy to move the feet, kind of idea, where each step is so much energy and then it just rumbles the earth. And it's just, there's the target, straight line for it. There's no diversions. There's nothing. Just heading straight for it. And it's that sort of raw power and energy that I get out of it. And it runs this pretty much straight up to the end. Although we did hit a point at the end where we shifted from the harsh vocals to the cleans, and it created a bit of I don't even know. It clashes so much with that rigid attack that we had, that we still exist in the moment, but we've shifted from the harsh vocals to this choir almost. It's the organ or choir, still not sure which instrumentation it is, but it kind of brings again the majesty of it, but it doesn't come from within. It doesn't come from the band, which was presenting it in the first section, which attributes that characteristic to this large mass that I'm feeling in. It is an external force. It is outside of the large mass. It is a brand new voice introducing this majesty, and I'm so curious what that means. I'm not quite figuring it out in the music, but yeah, there's this external uh, gloriousness almost. I don't know. But it's really interesting to hear this progression of large and majestic, small and isolated and hopeless, into a monolithic, single minded creature that eventually is surrounded by glorious sounds. Um, yeah, I just. It's an interesting story told musically. I'm real interested to get into the lyrics here to see what's going on, and what all this might be talking about. But before we do that, we need to talk about the vocals. This dude's vocals are so low. It's just really getting down into that growl. It almost sounds at times to be part of the band. It just sort of is in the same area of some of the bass work that's going on. Um, and I can't understand a single word. I'll be completely honest. I don't hear syllables at all. There is almost no enunciation. The compression is not helping at all. It just sounds like growling, mumbling. But there's something interesting about it in that it feels almost disconnected from everything else. It's very dispassionate. To me, the larger something is, the lower the voice it should be. We look at all sorts of giants and giant monsters, giant robots, and they all have low voices to them. And so I kind of get the idea that it is this beast that is so much larger than me, the listener, or possibly even someone else in the story, which would encompass that middle section, that small, isolated loneliness, that it's almost dispassionate about what else is happening. And like this other creature is so small and insignificant to it that there is no malice or anger or anything for them. It is completely uh, non emotional. It is just singing in its natural low voice. Um, and that's kind of what vibe I get from that. It's very cool. It's a very dispassionate type of vocal style that I don't think would work in a lot of situations. And I'm curious to listen to Ahab without some of these larger ideas in the music that I'm picking up. Maybe on possibly a less conceptual album. We'll get into the lyrics. We'll see what's going on. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I think the dispassion in it could actually work against it if the music didn't showcase the story as it is that I picked up. But it works very well in this specific case because of what it informs me about this giant lumbering thing, which is just very cool. All right, let's dig into some lyrics here. The ribs and terrors in the whale arched over me a dismal doom. While all God's sunlit waves rolled by and lift me deepening down to doom. I saw the opening maw of hell with endless pains and sorrows there, Elec none but they that feel can tell, oh, I was plunging to despair. So originally I thought maybe the whale was over him. He sees the ribs, but it says the ribs in the whale and in the maw of hell. So this person was swallowed by the whale and is within them, in their mouth or in their stomach or something, and all they feel because of this is despair and sorrow, because they feel both the whale pulling them down, says lifting me deepening down to doom, but also the dispassion of the water. The sunlit waves rolled by. The water doesn't even care that this is happening. Their surroundings is completely unconcerned about this person and the situation they're in, which is within a whale. In black distress I called my God when I could scarce believe him mine. He bowed his ears to my complaint, no more the whale did me confine. So in the most abysmal moment, he calls out to God who he doesn't even believe is his God anymore. And the whale let him go. The ribs and terrors in the whale arched. Oh, that we hit the chorus again. I didn't even know there was a chorus in here. I did not feel that at all. With speed he flew to my relief as on a radiant dolphin borne, awful yet bright as a lightning shone the face of my deliverer God. And then it repeats that again. My song forever shall record that terrible, that joyful hour. I give the glory to my God, his all the mercy and the power. My song forever shall record that terrible, that joyful hour. All right, and then nevermore. So I don't know what's up with the nevermore. But everything else is not Moby Dick. This is the story of Jonah. The biblical story. The dude gets swallowed by a whale. He prays to the Christian God, and the God comes down and says, "Yo, whale, spit that boy out." And the whale does so. And then he thanks God for helping him in this moment. Yeah, this is the story of Jonah. That sounds right. Why do I keep wanting to revert back to Jonas? Why does Jonas sound more right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is Jonah though. Interesting that they're both about whales. Is this? I mean, does Ahab just write about whales? Is this not the Moby Dick concept album? Is whales like their theme? It's a interesting thing to base a band off of. I don't know. But yeah, I was on the right track with the whale idea. And there's definitely somebody stuck in the whale, and it says that in their most distressed moment, when things are most abysmal. So yeah, we have this monstrous creature that is majestic as whales are, swallows this dude, and he feels hopeless in there. That's our second section. I'm not quite sure how our final moment ties into all of this. I believe that it would have come. I mean, the choir or organ thing at the end, I suppose, would be God's power, right? His invisible hand reaching down and saving Jonah from the whale. Um, but it's still paired against, unless God is supposed to, unless God is being personified as uh, this massive lumbering creature, this monolithic force. That would be an interesting turn, because that is what's going on here. It's interesting also, it says, with speed he flew to my relief, but the music is very slow and lumbering, very different from the more majestic and agile movement that we heard with the music that personified the whale. The whale is actually more swift than the Christian God, and is what the music is telling me. um, I don't know what's up with the Nevermore though. I give the glory to my God, and then there's a break, and then Nevermore. Like there's like 3 line breaks here, so it's separate. I don't think he's saying that I give my glory to my God, Nevermore. I think there's a lot of space here, time wise, that this is a wholly separate line, but I have no idea what it means against the rest of it. Um, those are my thoughts on Ahab's the sermon. Why is it even called the sermon? I mean, yeah, Jonah is typically a story told in sermons to teach people about patience and putting your faith in God to help you out of dark times. It's definitely, that idea kind of comes together, but is there anything beyond that? Am I missing something here? I must be missing something. I'm always missing something, right? You guys inform me of it. Those are my thoughts on Ahab's the sermon. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that stood out to you. Anything you'd like to correct me on or add on to what I said or anything like that. Let me know. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. You can support the channel through any of the links here. You can find communities to join outside of this, such as my Twitter or the Discord community. And there's a bunch of stuff in there personal-wise as well. Like if you want to check out my music, those links are in there. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to check out another track from Misspelled Band Names and our final special selection for the week. Nope, that does not sound accurate. We have one more special selection for the week. Yep, that's accurate. So our penultimate special selection, if you will. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.